Hello everyone, I am Bradley Sward, Associate Professor of Computer and Information Science at the College of DuPage in Glen Ellen, Illinois. And in this video today we're going to take a look at preparation for the 2022 Advent of Code competition that will be starting up in about 7 hours time as I sit here talking into the internet void. So this is a great time of year for many of us programmers, me included obviously, as over the next 25 days there will be 50 total puzzles to solve of increasing difficulty. And what I do know is that we can't really think about the processing stages of our code just yet because we really don't know what the problems are. But we know we're going to be using the equivalents of vectors and lists and sets and maps and also maybe linked lists and all sorts of other data structures to solve these problems. The fun is trying to figure out what is the most efficient algorithm, the most efficient way to get things done. Because with past experience in this competition, for part one of a specific problem, you can usually brute force it. But sometimes if you use that same algorithm for the part two of the problem with a larger data set, you might have to wait a trillion bajillion years for your solution to pop out, when you should be able to figure out a solution in 15 to 20 seconds at most, depending on the problem. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's get to it. So the thing we can actually cover here is how to process data from data file into a data structure. And every part of Advent of Code I've ever seen that I remember anyway, there's always been a data file that we need to take and massage into memory so we can start working our way toward a solution. And of course, depending on the day, depending on what the data is, it could be very simple, or it can be very complicated and use like recursive algorithms and all sorts of things to process data and work with things. And so we're not going to go that far. I'm just going to show you a basic template since this is day 0, and day 1, day 2, day 3 will probably be very simple relative to the days that are coming in the future. So let me take a look at year 2016, day 1, and I'm not going to do the entire problem here, but I just want to show you that this is something similar to what we will see. And so here is a data file, and here you could even see the answer if you wanted, 287. But here is the puzzle input, and it is a giant string of letters and numbers, comma separated and a space separated, and all sorts of crazy stuff here. And I think if that's everything. It's a lot of data here, and so we're going to process this and put this into a list. If there were multiple lines, and it looks like there's multiple lines, but this is actually just one line, I'll actually also show you how to massage this as well. So coming back to my actual code here, let's take a look at the code. And here is the code, and here is the data file I'm going to be processing. Okay, so as you see, here's my data file, and here is some code that will be able to pull things down. And here you can see the result of what this code is going to produce here. And so I'm going to have a list, and again, we can change things up when we know a little bit more about the problem we're trying to solve. But as you know, as a default, a list is a pretty good data structure. And so I have a list, and every line of my file is going to be an element of this list. And inside of that element is basically a list. So as you see, this is a giant list which contains 2 elements, and each of those elements is a list of its own. And each of these is separated by each individual element you see, delimited by the comma space that you see here, because I can see that there's a comma space between any 2 elements in a line, and of course there's some kind of new line character between lines of this file. So in essence, from a high-level standpoint, let's just kind of work through the code here and just describe this out, because this will be very similar in a lot of cases that you're going to see, and there's no reason why you should have to write this every time. You have this ready to go. Save yourself those couple minutes or however long it takes to get this thing written out. Modify what you need to modify, and bump yourself up on those, especially if you're taking this as a little more seriously on the competition side. So I'm saying, okay, my data, let's say at the end of the day, the data variable will be my list of lists that I can work with when it's all said and done. So you don't even need to do this if you're happy with what you got. My delimiter, what is going to be separating each element in a given line. And I can set this up, so I set this up this way so I don't have to go in and modify this code just to remember that. So it's a comma space, and I'm going to say, let's open that file. here's the name of the file. Let's treat it as a variable called file. And it says, okay, let's take this line by line by line. And Python is amazing when it comes to this kind of stuff, when it comes to the way it processes files, at least I feel like anyway. And it say for every line inside of there, basically start with a fresh list and basically strip off that delimiter and separate each of the 4 elements, at least 4 in this case, and go ahead and append that into this list. And when you reach the end of that and you reach the new line character, pop that list into the list. So add a new list element into this data list and just basically repeat that over and over and over again. And let me just add something like this here. And so just to do this one more time. So it's a very simple standpoint. For every line, process every token. And then in that case, when you're all done, you have a list of lists. And so you can see that this will handle variable size, variable sizing when it comes to the number of elements in a row. It'll handle as many rows as I can handle, as long as I put a comma space between them. Let's see, does it save everything when it does it? There you go. And so we have something we can start working with. And now, like I said, if I wanted to go ahead and place that text file, let's see what we get out of it. You can see I popped in the data file as one really long line. It's maybe not the easiest to see here in this editor, but it is truly one line. Whatever, just run my file, please. And when I do this, you will see that this comes up as a one element list inside of a list. So that's why there's 2 square brackets on each end of this. So again, this is probably a little overkill because this code is presuming we're going to have multiple lines. So I guess I could hook this up in this way if I know there's only one line. So I comment this out and I pop this in like this and I run this again, and now you'll see the only difference is my double square brackets becomes a single square bracket. So this makes it easier for me to use this thing because now this is a simple list of string elements. There's however many of them here, and each one of these is reduced down. You can see that it's a very nice and easy string, and then I can manipulate those elements one by one if I wanted to. Or maybe like with this, if I have my token and I could say maybe I just want the letter, and I could just say, oh, how about token 0 instead of token the whole thing, and now I have all the letters sitting in front of me. Or if I want whatever comes after it, 1:, this will get me the number that comes after it, but it comes in as a string. You can see 46 and 109 or whatever. So maybe I want to convert those into integers. And so now I have all the numbers in a list. So you kind of see where we're going with this. And so now I have everything I want to be able to do. I could have 2 separate lists, one for the letter and then one for the number, so forth and so on. The sky is the limit with how you want to process this data so that it's easy in your head to be able to start solving the problems ahead of you. So I hope this is going to be useful for you. So again, having that template to start with and a little bit of practice in a couple days' time. If this is an old hat, this will definitely be an old hat cliched thing for you. You'll be yawning. A couple days ago, you probably were, you had a lot of anxiety trying to figure out how to access a data file. And with a little bit of work, you guys are going to be old pros. So if you have any comments, please be kind. I'm trying to do my best like everybody else, and mistakes will be made, especially with the time constraints of trying to get these videos out rather quickly. So again, if you have comments in the next days, please be kind, and I will always be happy to have a conversation with you guys about some of the aspects of these problems. So thanks for sticking it out with me as always. I'm looking forward to at least the next week, where the problems are something we can do in 20 minutes time tops. Because they do get much, much harder, and then you start thinking about them for over a day, and then things do start snowballing after a while. So anyway, enough of my rambling. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you soon.